Well, you want to throw some holes?
Yeah, sure. It's not a complaint. I mean, that's the way it is. So that's always a little bit of a frustration to think, God, if 3 times as many volunteers came out, how amazing would our courses look like?
Right. You know, that's a good point. I mean, even especially with before, so like even from 2019, you know, to the end of 2020, I mean, there was like what, tens of thousands of players that jumped into the sport.
Yeah, the number, like the PDGA numbers, the climb, it's geometric. It's not arithmetic.
Well, it's like I got mine in 2019 when I moved here, and I got a 127, and I mean I've heard as high as like 180.
Yeah, so it's gotten like 50% more members in 2 years.
Right,
it's crazy,
and yet it doesn't seem like the help.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them don't, you know, there's not a connection yet. You know, a lot of them, they're not maybe following a club's website or posts or something. And, you know, I know with a lot of the volunteers, I mean, there's people that are serving on boards, and there's people that are playing in a lot of tournaments, and they're running events. And so that, you know, certain people have more time than others, and a lot of people have the time. They're just spread. There's a limit to how much they can do. But reaching out to all the new players is so key for anything.
Right, and especially for the growth of the sport.
Yeah. More like it.
Superb, memorable moment in your disc golf career?
One that really stand out. I mean, you know, I was always a reasonably good player, but I mean, the highest my rating ever got was 960. So I mean, my memorable moments are not about winning events. When I had time to do disc related activities, playing was not at the top of the list. Designing courses is always at the top of the list. So whereas the average person was out practicing whatever number of hours per week or per month, I wasn't out practicing. I was trying to scope out new locations and courses. So I didn't practice a lot. My game was never going to get that great.
What's your favorite course then that you designed?
Oh, maybe Wilcox, because of the terrain. I mean, to me, I've always said with designs, you need 3 things to have a great course. You need to have a great piece of land to start off with. Then you've got to have a good design. But those 2 things don't make a difference if the parks department or the property owners are not maintaining it, manicuring it. So that's what Wilcox has, just an incredible property. I mean, it's just everything a designer would want. I mean, water and roll and woods and open fields, and ponds and streams, but they keep it up. They manicure the heck out of it. So I think the end result, that might have been my favorite, how it turned out.
right? My favorite type of course to design is ski-hill courses.
Okay.
So like Camp Dog?
I've done 6 ski-hill courses in 4 states. Just because what you can do with on a ski-hill, you can't do anywhere else.
Right, you have that almost like throwing off a cliff environment.
Oh, this is interesting. This has changed a lot since the last time I was here. My God. Wow. Yeah, I mean, going back to the question, a memorable moment might have been, I first went up to the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island in 2017. And if you've never been up there, it's incredible. It's my favorite place to go in the world. I always done a lot of traveling, but I'm actually applying for my dual U.S. Canadian citizenship. It's in the works. Just because I could see myself moving up there one day. But I went up to Prince Edward Island and played in the Canadian Nationals in 2018 and 2019. And 2019, the third day, there was a hurricane. I can't remember the name of the hurricane, but a hurricane went through the area late in the day before during the night. So the next morning, there were trees down all over. I mean, it was a real hurricane. So we're playing that. I got 3 holes left. I go to hole 16, and I ace hole 16. I think I paid $500 for the ace or something. And then I got a birdie. And then the 18th hole, I took a quintuple bogey 10 on a par 5.
Oh no!
So I went ace, birdie, quintuple bogey. I went 1, 3, 10 on the last 3 holes. So that was pretty memorable. That was different. I don't know if anybody ever went 1, 3, 10. Oh, do I even want to try this? I got a lot of Did I hit the basket?
You hit the basket.
Thought I did. Yeah, but then it rolled into the pool.
No, you're good.
That would have taken a while. That's right there too. Another memorable tournament because of the beauty was the St. Jude Classic. It was held, God, I want to say it was 2015 maybe, on the Monterey Peninsula in Seaside, California. And it was a course set up on a ball golf course. And to be on the Monterey Peninsula near Pebble Beach to play on a ball golf course. It was pretty amazing.
Just gave him a drop-in.
Fuzzy chains, man. These are the top that hold the chains don't look as wide as most baskets. These chains look much narrower.
Right.
Okay, there's in my putting range. Every once in a while, the old guy throws it correctly. Partly because I can't even see it, but I know it's out there somewhere. Best place right in front of me because I can't possibly
about like a little bit of history of how you got into disc golf and when you got into disc golf and what got you into disc golf?
Yeah, I mean, it was right place, right time. I didn't know anything about disc, and I went to Rutgers, and my first day on the Rutgers campus in 1974. Tells you how old I am. I look out my dorm window, and there's two guys having a catch with a frisbee, and they looked really good. So I went out and started watching them, started talking to them, and I've told the story so many times. It would be like a kid going out in the middle of nowhere and seeing Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig having a catch with a baseball. Because the two guys were Herb Kalb and Dan Stork Roddick. So Herb Kalb is one of the three inventors of the sport of ultimate, and Stork is really the godfather of all disc sports in the world. I don't know if you know his name, Stork, Dan Roddick? Yeah, of course. And so, I mean, like, I stepped in it, I just was right there with the two best players in the world in some ways.
It's an amazing story.
And they actually were looking to recruit people to play ultimate on the Rutgers Ultimate team, because that was really the big thing back then. And I was running cross country and track for Rutgers, so I was natural for ultimate. So I just went out and started playing, and that's how I got into disc sports. And then right after that, I think like a month later, it's another cool story. A month later, Stork was running an event called OCTAD, which is a disc event with 8 different events. It's accuracy, distance, and golf, and MTA, and a whole bunch of different events, and all-around competition. And it was probably the biggest disc event of its kind in the world back then, in '74. So I'm a month into playing, and I'm playing with master frisbees. They're like they don't fly, so I might as well pick a paper plate and throw them. And so my first tournament, I played in it, and my first disc golf threesome, I was in a group with John Kirkland and Victor Malafronte. Victor Malafronte, I think, is PDGA number 2, I think.
Oh, wow.
And Kirkland is like 23. And they were touring at the time with the Harlem Globetrotters doing halftime shows.
Wow.
So these guys, they were like gods.
Right.
And here I am throwing a black master, and I don't know what I'm doing. I've been playing for a month, and it was humbling.
Yeah.
So I just, I really, anybody that would have had those kind of encounters from day one of being exposed to a disc, you would have just evolved the same way I did. I mean, it was just right place, right time. It was very, I call it cosmic serendipity. I mean, you had to have gotten into it.
Right.
And then Stork was finishing up the design of the course at Rutgers, which at the time was an object course, because at the time there were no baskets. Our baskets were chicken wire. They made chicken wire, like this tall, and they put a ring on the ground, and that was your basket.
Oh.
So, it may be 4-foot diameter, 3-foot diameter, and you had to like throw it into the ring on the ground, and that was the hole.
Wow.
Or I think the Rutgers course was an object course, so there was ribbon on specific trees. You had to hit above the lower ribbon and below the upper ribbon. When you hit the tree, that was the hole.
Wow.
Because that was '74, and baskets didn't come out till '76 or '77.
Okay.
So I mean, I just really stepped in it. Just happened to be just right place, right time.
Right. That's amazing. It's a great story.
And I learned. I learned. Not just was I exposed to, but I learned from some of the best players that there were.
Right. And you've got your PDGA's 310, right?
310, yeah, but I'm pissed because I should have had a 2-digit number.
Oh,
Because
no.
when I went to get my PDGA number, it was at one of the first 2 tournaments back in Memorial Day in 1977. There was actually a course at Craigmere,
Okay.
right on Green Pond Road over here in Rockaway and Newfoundland.
Okay.
And that was one of the first 2 tournaments, and I went to sign up and get my PDGA number and play in the tournament, and Ed Hedrick was handing out the numbers. And I was in line with a friend of mine from the Rutgers Ultimate team. For some reason, I got 310 and he got 73.
Uh-huh.
So they weren't giving them out in order. They must have had just a batch of them,
Oh,
and they were just handing them out. So everybody's like, wow, you got a 3-digit number. And I'm thinking, yeah, at this point, I'm thinking, yeah, I should have had a 2-digit number.
So what year did Buzzies get put in?
Now here we go with like remembering specific dates. I'm pretty sure it was 88 or 89.
Okay.
Because I was living like, depending which it was, 88 or 89. I moved from 88 to 89. I moved from that shore over there to further north right on the lake.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just wandered in here one day and said, oh my gosh, ideal for a little course.
Right.
I think it was one of those 2 years.
So it's like, in order to get fuzzies put into the ground, like how long did it take to, like, of talking with people?
I'm trying to think where it was. I don't remember the specifics, but I don't remember that it was any sort of lengthy bureaucratic nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember. This is state of New Jersey property.
Right.
The township of West Milford leases or rents from the state. And I'm trying to remember, did I get permission from the state or from West Milford? I don't remember that, but I don't recall there being a disaster of any kind, so it must have been really quick.
Okay. So then, while it was like something new, people were kind of more encouraged about, hey, let's get something new put into the park and get some more use out of it.
I guess, because back then, I mean, you're talking 32 years ago, 33 years ago.
Right.
I mean, it was still a sport in its infancy, so it wasn't like there's this mainstream understanding of what this game is like there is today.
Right.
So somebody must have it must have been something like that. Somebody must have said, yeah, this sounds interesting, let's do it. And my guess is, and again, I don't remember, my guess is that I didn't ask anybody for any money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we paid for the course costs through whole sponsorships.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made the signs.
Right.
My company made those signs, so that saved, we didn't have to go out and buy signs.
Right.
So I think it made it easy by virtue of us coming up with the funding, which is what happened at Warwick too. When we put it in Warwick in, I basically went to him and said, here's an offer you can't refuse. I'm going to put it in course. As long as you allow me to do it on this piece of land, I'll pay for it, which obviously cuts through a lot of the considerations that they may have.
Right. So when designing this course, what was the deciding factor of putting hole 1 right here?
I mean, look, most Design 101 would say wherever possible, put the first hole and the 18th hole close to where people are parking. So there's the parking lot right there. So, I mean, it made sense to just do it somewhere in this area. Why this spot versus spot on the other side of the parking lot? It was more just, when I design, I just walk a plot of land multiple times and look at it from 10 different perspectives, and probably every design I do, the end product is totally different than the first iteration when I first walked through it. So it's really just a function of working out the flow and seeing there's natural holes that just call out your name and say, here's a perfect hole. All right, that's a hole.
Right.
And you're going to put 3 holes over there and 6 there and 6 there, and then it's a matter of doing like little mini courses in these specific little areas.
Okay.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! The cool thing about this course is an awful lot of players in the Skylands club and in this area. This is where they learned the game, started playing. And Steve Brinster grew up here in West Milford. Grew up maybe half a mile from here. And of course, Steve now was the 2013 USDPC champion and one of the best disc golfers in the history of the game. And I remember picking him up at his house sometimes when he was, 12, 13, 14, something like that, and bringing him over here and letting him play. And so this is where he cut his teeth, and this is where he learned the game. So I think that's another reason we would love to keep this course here, just for the legacy, for all the players that learned here.
Right. Yeah, I actually got the pleasure to watch Brinster play because I happen to be on the card right behind him over at the Norway Championship.
Oh, okay.
And that shot he did on 14, standing right there behind him and watching him lace that gap and make the island in one shot was just unbelievable.
It's one thing to watch that on video, it's another to watch it live.
That one's gold.
It's a game because I wasn't consistent enough with my normal discs, so I went back to the discs that were closest to what I grew up with, which were lids for Ultimate.
Right. And sometimes you got to go back to the basics.
Yeah, I felt like I knew where they were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually stopped playing for like 2 months because I was just so frustrated. And then when I started in again, I went with discs that I know how to throw them.
Right.
And I know where they're going to go. And it made it a lot more fun. And I actually signed up for the Zephyr World Championships the end of October,
Nice.
upstate New York. So it's perfect practice.
That's one of the things that like kind of bugs you.
I mean, look, in principle, absolutely, you shouldn't do it. But I'm less concerned with a crossing fairway that's an inconvenience or a safety issue between a player and a player, as I am a safety issue between a player and a non-player, whether it's a pedestrian or a car or things like that. So, I mean, players kind of know, hey, you got to look before you throw, you got to look before you cross the fairway. But pedestrians don't know that, and the cars that are driving by don't know that.
Right.
So I'm more concerned with that. You know, I think one of the I think the best legacy of this sport is there's been ice bowls held here.
Right.
I was actually going to probably just about every winter since the course opened, so that's 32, 33 years.
and I don't think there's anybody that's got a spreadsheet that shows how much money we've raised for charities, but the charity of interest for everybody here was Strengthen Our Sisters, which is a homeless shelter for battered women that's located about a half a mile from here. And my guess is we've raised $50,000 to $75,000 over the years, maybe $100,000.
Wow,
for that charity.
that's amazing.
And
So now during the ice bowl, though, right? When the lake freezes over, you guys put baskets out on the.
I think there have been years we've had them out there. Yeah, I mean, I think we've only had a couple people break through the ice, so it's not too bad. Everybody resurfaced. Again, I don't know if you guys are hurt. There is a possibility this course is going to be closed. What just happened? It's within the last 6 months. I think the state is considering putting in a boat ramp, boat launching ramp, right here, and it would be a fairly significant project that would enlarge the parking lot by quite a bit. So there was thought that they would have to close the course not only because the parking lot's going to expand, but because there'll be so much more activity here that they don't want that interaction between discs and boaters, which I get.
Well, now I'm more glad that we're actually doing this.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, because who knows? I mean, a year from now, who knows? I mean,
Right.
what we're kind of hoping is that if that happens, that somebody might have enough of a conscience and an understanding of what this sport is and what this is done for charities, that maybe there's a possibility of offering us another piece of land, like real close to here, that might actually end up being a nicer piece of land and end up with a nicer course. It would still stink if this disappeared, but look, if that's the worst case, so we get a better course, okay,
Right.
decent compromise.
You know, take your pluses with your minuses.
You know, I love those tree shots.
This is a nice view with these. Even from back here with these branches here, it's kind of framed. Yeah, that was ugly. Really cloudy. My putting, that's better than it's ever been. Or no, I meant the putt. I really haven't been playing
I mean, this is all about like you and Buddy's
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, planning work for now.
So we got 3 runs up, 3 runs.
Here's this is again design 101 terrible. 3 and 4 share fairway.
Right.
3 flowing right at the entrance to a park. It's a blind shot from the tee. Hard to get these discs from it. And I have lobbied the Skylands Club to do a redesign here, and I've gotten way too much resistance. Right?
Which is also what I've heard about. You know, there's been a lot of players that have been asking for like new baskets here, and they're like totally against that.
No, I don't think it's so much the redesign. It feels like the board, because I can't just redesign it. It's now a club course,
Right.
I don't want to be making all the decisions. That's not fair. So I think the redesign, the resistance to a redesign, I think is a club resistance. I don't know about the average player, but the new baskets, I get the sense, I don't know if it's the club so much that doesn't want it. I get the sense that the players, the overwhelming majority of the players have been here for a long time, they don't want new baskets. It's almost like these baskets they're not the best baskets, they're really old. And that's sort of part of the attraction and the appeal, that they're these original baskets, and you're going to get spit out, and it doesn't catch great, but that's sort of part of the, along with some of the design quirks and the fact that it's so old, like, okay, this is the way it was 32 years ago. Let's leave it the way it was. Kind of and honoring the past, I get the sense is maybe one of the thought processes.
So then it's probably more of like the newer players that are like, hey, these baskets spit out. I don't like that they spit out. Why can't we get new baskets? And
yeah, it could be. I mean, look, I can't speak to what everybody's reasons are for liking them and not liking them. I mean, you're talking about an $7 to $8 grand expenditure.
Right.
The club's not rolling in money, so the question is $7,000 to $8,000 better spent on a course that's going to be there for the long term, where we have bigger tournaments, whereas this is more of a casual, laid-back, kind of old-school kind of course.
Right.
So I think that's part of the process. I would guess if we had more money than we knew what to do with, I would suspect there'd already be new baskets here. I think it's allocating and priorities, and then with the talk of, in the last year, maybe the course being yanked.
Right.
So obviously we're not going to invest any money in anything, tee signs or baskets, until we at least see how that plays out.
But me personally, I do like that the old baskets kind of tend to the history of the course, especially with like the old signs. It just kind of gives it that classic feel.
Yeah, I mean, you're not coming here expecting that it's going to have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted.
Right.
It's got flaws, but it's your little brother. Even though if your little brother's messed up,
right,
he's still your little brother. You still got to love him.
Right. Right.
Like the clothes he wears, he's a geek, he's a nerd, but he's your little brother. You love him.
Right.
And the baskets, I can't remember now. It's gone through different evolutions, but I'm pretty sure 9 of the baskets here were from the Craigmere course.
Oh, okay.
Which was one of the Craigmere's in Newfoundland, 20 minutes from here. And there were 2 tournaments that were the first PDGA tournaments ever, and they were both held on Memorial Day weekend of 1977. One was at Craigmere, one was in Mobile, Alabama, run by Tom Monroe. And that course lasted only a couple of years, and then it became private. And we bought 9 of those baskets from them. Guess when the course started here? Craigmere had already closed.
Right. And
So,
this started as like a 9-hole, didn't it? Or was it
no,
automatically?
this started as 18, but
Okay.
but again, I'm pretty sure it's true that 9 of the 18 were original baskets from one of the first original tournament courses that we retrofitted. I mean, we added another. I think the original baskets might only had 1 set of chains, and we added an inner set of chains just so that they were catching a little better.
Gotcha.
So that's part of the appeal
Right.
too. That they're part of the original.
Right. So they're from the start of disc golf.
The start of disc golf baskets.
Right. Well,
Yeah. Let's see what happens here.
that like changed a lot of the aspects of like future courses that you've designed?
Yeah, I mean, it's always in the back of my mind. Like, this could be a problem, something bad happens. I mean, you have to be, one, because you don't want to see a problem, legitimate problem. And two, people can get litigious for little things, and then if it's a serious enough issue, the course might get yanked. Right. I mean, that's happened. People get hit, and the next day the course is closed. So, on a lot of levels, you don't want to see any issues like that.
Right.
I mean, look, in principle, absolutely, you shouldn't do it. But I'm less concerned with a crossing fairway that's an inconvenience or a safety issue between a player and a player, as I am a safety issue between a player and a non-player, whether it's a pedestrian or a car or things like that. So, I mean, players kind of know, hey, you got to look before you throw, you got to look before you cross the fairway.